In this video, we're going to look at system flowcharts. Now, system flowcharts don't necessarily have to go straight up and down like you would see in a lot of other diagrams, but I kind of like the way that it does. The system flowchart shows only the logic in a system. Okay, we don't care an awful lot about the data in the system unless it actually pertains to choices and divergence and all the rest of it. Okay, so we really are only focused on how things happen or the process in which things go through. So there are, I think, 11 symbols you have to know. There's about 150 to 200 odd symbols in most system flowchart systems, but we really only need to worry about 10 or 11. Okay, now there are the input, paper document, they are online display, they are the online input, yes, would you believe, the punch card. Now, it's still a thing. The process, manual operation. The magnetic disc, no, I'm not kidding. I can't draw for it. Look at that, that is just atrocious. You know what, I'm going to give that a second go. That is just terrible. I apologize, you shouldn't have seen that. Not much better, but it'll do. Disk drive, a decision. You know what, I can do better than that too. And my personal favorite, the telecommunications link. Okay, so those are the ones that are outlined in the course specification document, a document that you should be reading on a regular basis. So how do they all work? Well, input is just any input into the system. Okay, so if you punch in your information into a computer, that's input. Paper is a paper document, so that would be anything that might be printed, like a receipt or a PDF or something like that. Online display is display to a computer screen. Online input is input that comes from online. Punch card is a punch card. I can't believe it's still a thing. Process is any function or module that we run. A manual operation is something that we do physically. So for example, punching in your PIN code in an ATM would be a manual operation. Magnetic tape is still used. So backing things up to magnetic tape, yeah, not a big deal. We usually use disks now, which is there below. Decision is a big deal, so we'll use a lot of decisions, and a telelink. So that basically is connecting two systems together online. Okay, so if we were to think of a system, let's say, for example, we use a hotel check-in system before, we might have, say, for example, that the user will input information into the system. So they will put input into the system. Now we need to say what. So user deets. That will come into a, let's say, a process. So we will check room. That will talk to a database. Now we will have to ask a question, won't we? Is the room booked? Now here we split the system. We've got a yes, we've got a no. Yes, you can have as many options come off for this as you need. Okay, so no will go to another process. Room available. I can't write. Okay, so it's going to check to see, and yes, you should use arrows. Room available. Here we'll have another yes, no. So really that should be, if we're being completely strict, that should be check room, that should be list rooms or query rooms. Because we're going to have to ask here, do we have room? Question mark. If yes, we'll come back to here, assign room. No, we'll go to the process, go away. Okay, the assigned room will also talk to a database. And we will give them a key card and receipt, which can be a PEPI document. So let's talk about that as a receipt. Okay, and process is complete. Okay, that is simply how you put them together. They're very, very straightforward. They can get a little bit more complicated, but with the system, with only 11 symbols that we get to use, they are pretty straightforward to use. As you can see, key here is there's very little information that's being passed around, like there's very little information on the data that's actually being processed. We really are limited to yes, no questions in terms of selection. It really is a very straightforward process in how you actually put them together. The thing to look for when you're completing questions is when you're reading through the scenario, what are they saying is going to happen? So when we would say, for example, this was a scenario, they would say the user enters their details into a check-in system. The room is then checked to see whether it's booked or not. If it's not booked, they then list if there's available rooms. If there are no available rooms, they're told to go away. Otherwise, a room is assigned and a receipt is printed. So you can see here, if we go through that scenario, everything is clearly listed, and you would just use that information that's given you in the scenario and interpret it in this particular way.